Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Out, How to Be Your Authentic Self by Miles McKenna. Forward by Tyler Oakley. Narrated by Miles McKenna. To every toy on Misfit Island. To second grade Miles, when you get older, Mom's gonna buy you boxer briefs for Christmas and you get to cut your hair. And to you, as a reminder that you're never truly alone in this world. Forward. Dear listener, being true to yourself and standing proudly in your identity is a gift, not only to yourself, but to everyone you meet. Shining as who you are, because who you are is something to be celebrated, helps everyone you encounter feel free to do the same. Queer kids often hear about how it gets better, and while that may give them the strength to keep going, it leaves them with a daunting question to figure out on their own. How do I get through all of this now? In a world that often makes queer kids feel like outcasts, coming out can feel impossible. And loving all of your identity can seem like an act of political resistance. I'm grateful that you get to navigate that world with Miles McKenna at your side. For me, being gay felt like a secret I'd never be able to tell. I don't remember having many out and proud celebrities to look up to, gay musicians who sang about what I was going through, or even any queer friends or family whom I could ask advice or learn from. When I was figuring it all out, I couldn't go on the internet and search coming out stories. But today, one search on YouTube will yield thousands of first-hand accounts from almost every perspective under the queer umbrella. You can find bisexual boys talking about their stigma they face within the community, transgender women of color speaking out about the unique challenges they encounter in everyday life, asexuals explaining how they realized their identity was valid, and gay couples sharing their adoption stories. The internet has given a platform to so many queer people to finally tell their story in their own way, and has connected young queer people not only to their communities, but also to their history. One person I'm honored to see lead the charge is Miles. I first met Miles at, of course, a Pride event. Before I finally went up to introduce myself, I watched as he met a few of his adoring fans. Miles is one of the brightest young creators on YouTube, one I've been watching completely in awe for a while. He's got that X factor that every great creator has. A unique point of view, a fresh execution of creativity, a charm and wit that draws you in, and a message that keeps you thinking. All of that in one person? It's a no-brainer that someone like that would find success in making YouTube videos. But what set Miles apart for me was watching him connect with his viewers in person. He listened to them pouring their hearts out, some even breaking down in tears as they described how he helped them, or entertained them, or was there for them when they needed it most. He held their hands and looked them in the eyes with sincerity that came from understanding exactly what they were going through, because he'd been through it too. He not only listened, but he also heard, and he truly made them feel seen, understood, and validated. He did it over and over and over because the line to meet him was endless. Giving that much of yourself can feel heavy, but Miles did it with grace and humility. In watching Miles exude this grace, I turned from a fan into a super fan. When Miles and I finally did meet, after he was done meeting all of the young kids that looked up to him, one of the first things he told me was that I helped him make his own coming out journey easier, and that he wanted to do the same for kids like him. Others who are questioning their identities and wondering how to gather the courage to tell the people that they love. I reassured him that he was already doing exactly that, and he was the perfect person to carry out that mission. Miles is a beacon of hope for so many young queer people, and I'm grateful for the amazing stuff he makes on the internet. His videos have garnered millions of views around the world, and just by sharing his truth, he is literally changing the world. Not every creator takes this kind of opportunity seriously or understands the impact that they can have. While it's nobody's obligation to create videos for social good, I believe it's a missed opportunity when you don't use your platform to help those who look up to you. Watching Miles evolve over the years into one of the best creators on YouTube makes me feel like the future is in good hands, and that the queer kids today have someone who is on their side and ready to help. When I first found out Miles was going a step further in writing this book, I couldn't wait to read it and share it with anyone and everyone. A guide like this will save lives, plain and simple. This guide doesn't read like a typical self-help book. Instead, it's like taking a peek at Miles's personal journals, complete with brilliant anecdotes related to life-affirming questions, like choosing a name that best fits your gender expression, mixed with an incredible gay list, a gay playlist, with bops to play at a cute little queer social event. This book is for so many kinds of people. Teens who are questioning, parents hoping to understand, teachers wanting to learn so they can then teach. It works as a great personal companion as well as a guide for those seeking to be a better support system for their queer loved ones. Miles approaches his story with sensitivity and depth, but stays true to the very thing that made his fans, maybe you, fall for him in the first place: his perfect balance of brutal honesty and hilarious introspection. Miles does an incredible job acknowledging the weight of coming out while exploring what the experience really should be: a celebration. You're finally letting people in your life know you better. What an incredible gift! And Miles has created a book that honors that celebration and shows how it can actually be so fun. Whether he's talking about experimenting with self-expression through his hairstyles or giving advice on delivering witty coming-out lines, Miles gives listeners a one-of-a-kind survival guide that not only shows the light at the end of the tunnel, but how the journey through the tunnel can be just as shimmering. Miles's candid voice, full of youthful energy, has made his coming out and transition story accessible to those who may be unfamiliar with the trans experience. The enigmatic spirit that I found within the minutes of meeting him shines through in all of his online content, and now in this book. Miles's mission is helping those who might be questioning their sexual orientations and/or gender identities, enabling them to find hope in times of the dark unknown. I wish I had had Miles McKenna in my life when I was younger. Young, insecure, and closeted Tyler might have been less afraid to be himself after seeing the brave and unwavering confidence that Miles McKenna exudes effortlessly. We were lucky enough to have his videos, and now we're blessed to have his book. Okay, enough gushing from me. Enjoy. Yours, Tyler Oakley. Intro. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Miles. I'm a queer, transgender, 20-something-year-old guy who tries to be funny on the internet like probably everyone else you know. But for this book, you can think of me as like an older sibling, mentor, fairy godbrother, or, if you're willing, a member of your chosen family. I want to start this off by getting one thing straight, even if you aren't. You do not need someone's approval or acceptance to be who you are, or to be proud of who you are. If you're listening to this, you might be questioning your gender or sexuality, getting ready to come out, or maybe all or none of the above. You might have family or friends who are experiencing those things, or maybe you're just a curious ally. But no matter where you're coming from, I'm here to help you through it. Now, I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, "Don't worry, it gets better." And while this is often said with good intentions for anyone who's ever needed that assurance, it's pretty much the most frustrating thing on the planet to hear. Like, LOL, okay, when is it going to get better? Because that part they're telling me not to worry about, it was pretty bad. All I wanted was a magic day on the calendar when suddenly everything would be right again. Or really right for the first time ever. When would it get better? In 6 months? 6 years? It was even harder to hear because I didn't have any examples of those happy, better people to look up to for me to say, yeah, okay, it's possible. So that's who I'm going to try to be for you. While I can't tell you your exact magical date, I can tell you about how I got mine. Turns out it was exactly 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. I know, weird. From my coming out date to when I actually tweeted something cheesy but true. I heard it gets better years ago, and I thought it wasn't true. Miles, you came out January 2nd, 2015, and it just got better March 4th, 2017. Hold on, kids. I remember feeling such relief after facing so much adversity in my youth for just being myself. The parts of myself that I was vulnerable enough to share with my family members were originally ignored or ridiculed. I was called slurs, I was told I was going to hell. I slept on friends' couches and on the backseat of my car when I didn't feel safe to go home. I had even tweeted, "Don't come out, it's not worth it." Why did everyone have to know? And why couldn't I just be like everyone else? I'd spent a good amount of my teen years feeling incomplete and then very alone. So to get to that day when I felt differently was almost a dream. The stigma that's laid on LGBTQ+ youth is funny. Often we're described as either troubled and confused or delicate snowflakes who need to stand out. My faith in humanity is never stronger than when I meet a young queer kid. I'm not sure why being confident in one's identity is a trait that some people mock, but I hope those people are able to evolve and be more compassionate. Go off on supportive moms and dads. Because we all need support. All of us. Teenage years are filled with changes. Our bodies are constantly shifting and doing weird things. Our interests expand, and we want to be free from our parents' rules and expectations. There's a lot of excitement, and with that comes a lot of confusion. Maybe you're given keys to a car, or you attend your first dance. We experience so many firsts, and all the while are trying to navigate who we are and what we believe in. Up until our teen years, we're told, you can be whoever you want to be. But to a lot of us, that promise ends up being the biggest scam. Unfortunately, that phrase needs a big asterisk. Only if whoever you are is cis and straight, the default. If you're not what many automatically presume you are going to be, that added weight of questioning or hiding who you are makes experiencing all those new adventures and figuring out what's next super challenging and isolating. When I was in that vulnerable place, I found local and online communities that helped me go from being a stubborn kid who swore they'd never come out to doing so in front of millions of people on the internet. As a result of gaining the confidence to come out, I eventually started touring the United States, sharing my stories and cultivating safe spaces for LGBTQ+ youth. By surrounding myself with those who embrace who I am and who I want to be, I was able to go back and foster relationships with family members who at first didn't know how to show support. And I found the strength to cut ties with those who don't and won't truly see me. My queerness has taught me strength, my transness has taught me patience and empathy, and my journey up to this point has shown me that standing up for who you are goes beyond sexuality and gender. It's human. We are continually coming out and hoping we are accepted by the majority. Not just you, but your parents, your siblings, your teacher, your boss. Everyone encompasses intersecting identities with their race, social class, education level, family dynamic, religion. It's not just sexuality and gender. Today, if those parts of your identity do not align with everyone else's, we're supposed to proclaim them and hope that no one tries to change our truth or completely shun us. It's a strange concept. Knowing and living your truth is a superpower, not something to fear. It's how I can look back and understand why I felt so out of place in my middle school dance attire, or why finding a new jumble of sounds to be called by feels so right, or how I can look in the mirror and understand what my true identity looks like, or how I now know who I want to love. Making those discoveries is a long process, and it's my hope that this is the survival guide that will get you through it. Within, I have compiled stories and tips from my sad emo boy teen years to help you kick self-discovery's ass and be 100% authentically you. I don't know your story or level of safety. I'm just going to be for you what other people have been for me, an example of being queer, trans, and happy in a world that brainwashes us into believing that all those things can't exist at once. Here's how I got out and how you can too. Author's note. Labels, as I've come to understand them, are just tools that we use to define ourselves for other people, to have a sense of belonging or exclusion from a pack. Language is constantly evolving and up for interpretation. What's bigger than a definition is the human experience. Be who you are and do what is natural. The mission of this book is to offer validation. There are so many different ways to be and paths to take to become the person you want to be. What follows comes from my personal experience. My advice stems from the things that helped me on my personal journey, but I'm only the expert in being me. If you define yourself as something that isn't in this book, that's great. Maybe you'll write your own book or make a video on what it means to be you. However you choose to spread love in this world, give it all you've got, just like those before you. If language has evolved by the time that you've heard this, or anyone is left out of the conversation, that was not my intention. Feel free to pick up the baton and keep the conversation going. Letting go of labels. My coming out story started long before I said the words, "Mom, Dad, I'm blank," as I think it does for all of us. I can see my queerness and transness shining through in videos, notebooks, and relationships long before I had the language to describe what it was that I was feeling. Labels are words that we use to define ourselves and describe a unique human experience. I like to think of labels as a secondary tool used in your journey of self-discovery. When I'm asked, how do I know I'm gay, or how do I know I'm trans, my answer is always to do what feels right and live authentically, instead of stress over what label you should cling to. Labels give a great sense of community during a time when you may feel very excluded from communities that you thought you were a part of. Your home, your school, your friend group. But it can also put a lot of pressure on defining yourself and being correct, instead of just being. I know I was royally stressed out in my teen years, wondering if I could be blank and what that would mean for me since blank isn't an okay thing to be. What if I came out and I was wrong? It's okay not to know what you identify as. Labels have more to do with telling someone else who you are than being proactive in your own journey. Let's figure out how you feel on the inside before we try to find a word to put to it for everyone on the outside. Part 1. Miles from home. What my life was like before I came out. I started making YouTube videos for fun in 2007 when I was 11 years old. I was living in Las Vegas, and at the time, there wasn't many outside forces trying to change who I was. Though I was born with a stereotypical pink bow on my head, I freely dressed very masculine and was consistently the only quote-unquote girl on my sports teams. My friends were all cis boys who I had grown up with since I was in SpongeBob boxer briefs that I had begged for at Target. They would constantly stick up for me if I was teased for being me. I remember when I was 8 years old and with my friends at the playground when another group of boys told me that girls weren't allowed. I froze. I had never been gender blocked by someone who looked like me before. It had only happened when the occasional adult and/or teacher would use my feminine name as a reason why I couldn't do something that all my cis male friends were doing. Luckily, I didn't have to say anything because my friend Sterling did. "She's cool," he said nonchalantly. "She's just a boy trapped in a girl's body." The entire class of boys looked at me, agreed, and then invited me to play. But I was still frozen. I'd never heard of a boy being trapped in a girl's body before. I now know that sentiment resonates with some of my trans peers as a way to define their experience, while others don't feel that way at all. At the time, it scared me because it meant I was seen as different. Up until that point, I had never thought of myself as being different. That quickly changed as my family moved from the tight-knit community in Las Vegas to the tube-top lip-gloss tween dreamland of Orange County, California. I was 12 and going into middle school. The clothes that had made me look sporty and tomboyish to my cishet peers who celebrated masculinity now made me weird and different as I entered my teen years. I was too boyish in demeanor to be accepted by any of the girls, but my figure was too girlish to let me hang out with the boys. Middle school gender roles were cutthroat in my town. My first few months of being the new kid were miserable at best. Emos, where you at? The internet turned into my escape. There, I could watch people who were much different than the people I knew in my home, but were very similar to me, even if I didn't have the language yet to express why I felt that way. Reading blogs by trans teens and watching vlogs made by out and proud adults were fun and comforting. It's as if they walked to a beat of a drum that no one else in my house but me could hear. I was obsessed with watching transition videos online when I was 13 years old. I did so entirely in secret. I would watch videos and follow blog posts written by trans masculine kids around the globe and learn about hormone replacement therapy and advancements in surgeries. Then I'd follow their voice change updates. Seems like that would have been a red flag indicating my desire to transition, right? Wrong. I would convince myself that I was innocently yet incredibly fascinated with transgender issues, and I was just a very supportive ally to the trans community. It's always surprising and validating to compare experiences with others in the community because I'm not alone in doing this. In hindsight, and now as a self-aware trans person, my cover story of just being very interested in the T of LGBTQ+ didn't match up since I would of course only do research on trans masculine people and not trans feminine. It's as if my denial was a defense mechanism developed out of fear of exclusion. For years, I would garner knowledge about the community and arm myself with tools that I would later apply to my own transition. Watching people socially and medically better themselves in the ways that they wanted to and live their truth at a time when those resources wouldn't have been accessible to me was incredibly comforting. The saying, "hindsight is 20/20, speaks volumes to me in my journey. Even when I was young and couldn't fully define who I was still finding outlets and representation. I want to note that no matter who you look up to or admire, someone giving you validation and language to be yourself, you are that for someone else. Community is a never-ending cycle, and your experience holds weight. Being online meant having access to many queer and trans outlets, but offline, I had to live in the real world, and that meant middle school. It's really the ultimate crossover episode of childhood and young adulthood. Puberty starts, and you're either told you're becoming a man or you're becoming a woman. School dances and dating push heteronormativity onto us even more. This time was so confusing because it was now expected that parts of me that were tomboyish would be left on the playground, and I would automatically blossom into this feminine being. I was constantly questioned by family members why I didn't want to wear makeup or feminine clothes, and my pleas to cut my hair short were answered with a resounding no. There were no longer co-ed sports teams to join, and boys weren't supposed to be my friends. They were supposed to be my dates. I was continually getting in trouble for wearing my hood up or bringing a hat to school to hide my long hair. Female puberty was also nothing to look forward to. The one thing I did like about these raging hormones was getting acne, as it made me look like the generic teen boys I'd seen on Degrassi who I thought were mad cool. Still, I managed to make a few very close friends, though, spoiler alert, everyone turned out queer as well. Big shock there. That saying, birds of a feather flock together, is too real. In my late teens, I found a larger community of queer and gender variant youth in my area, and I used the language I had acquired to express how I was feeling. On one hand, I was being affirmed by like-minded kids my age, but on the other, I was still a long-haired people-pleaser with a cross around my neck. I owe a lot of my strength to those queer kids I spent most of my days and nights with who truly saw me for me. They were my first real-life examples of people who looked on the outside the way I felt on the inside, and in my eyes were okay. I remember thinking how an anvil didn't drop out of the sky on their heads when they cut their hair, or when two boys held hands, or if someone changed their name. And if they could do it being whatever felt right, then so could I. But first, I had to figure out what my it was. Transreads.org has hundreds of free reading material written by and or about trans people. Whether you're looking for fictional representation in a book or answers to medical questions in a zine, there are many handpicks by others in the community to choose from. Go to transreads.org. I'm questioning my sexuality. How do I know if I'm LGBTQ+? If I could go back in time, I would shake teenage Miles out of obsessively questioning his sexuality. My advice seems so simple now, though at the time I had no idea how to navigate my potential queerness. It's easy to fall into the trap of fear when you're unsure if your identity is different from what you originally thought. I was so scared of what coming out would mean to the people closest to me, and that fear caused me to push down those feelings and later obsessively try to define what I was. The fear that overwhelmed me once I started to connect the dots of my identity was huge. I watched movies with gay lovers in secret and followed dozens of accounts of people who embraced queerness. But was I gay? Was I pansexual? Was it a phase? What if I have a coming out and I'm wrong? Tips to discovering your sexuality. The best advice I could give to baby me is, number 1, slow down. Pay attention, young, maybe gay grasshopper. You don't need to have all the answers about who you are and what you identify as today. And knowing who you are doesn't mean you need to proclaim it tomorrow. Those coming out fears are so valid, and we will cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, we need to find out what our truth is. That is something that's yours. You get to choose the speed of your process. My big advice after years of questioning and then years of being a big gay meme is, drumroll please, be mindful of your uncertainty and desire as you move through life. Start dating and begin finding what feels right. Throws confetti. That's it. That's the whole advice. I think at the root of sexuality is your unique definition of how you love and how you want to be loved. In a world where we're told by others what love needs to look like, we can lack the language to define it or be too scared to try and find it. If you think you might like feminine folk, that's great. Maybe you'll meet someone you'll want to ask out on a date. Are you sure you like masculine humans? But you've never dated one? Sweet. Maybe you'll meet some dude who's totally queer and totally into you. Everyone's relationship with dating and with themselves is different. Knowing your truth and your interests and disinterests is more important than contemplating what-ifs and trying to make a label fit. My advice to someone questioning their sexuality is to keep living your life at your own pace, and your questions will be answered with time, not with stressing and self-loathing. Before I had the language to describe how I felt, I was engulfed by the fear of what if, to the point of pushing away a lot of people and a lot of adventures. This is your story you are writing, and no one else's. Keep moving forward. Number 2, continue to live your life. Once you've gained some knowledge and the language to define it, celebrate this newfound knowledge of your interest or disinterest in other humans and apply it when needed. Maybe you'll want to have a formal coming out and share this information with others. Maybe you'll just want to share it with close friends. Or maybe you're not ready to share, and that is totally okay. Go at your own pace. Self-discovery doesn't mean you need or will have all the answers immediately. Picture this, 15-year-old gawky Miles, who was definitely wearing a dress, definitely uncomfortable, but who had also swallowed all those feelings for the sake of trying to fit in, standing awkwardly at a party. At the time, my unknown trans ass was seen as a girl when I was asked, If you were gay, who would you be with from our school? At this point, I hadn't connected all the dots of my identity, but of course, I had an answer immediately. I said I would like this girl, who I didn't, who was in the grade above me, and then she'd always talk to me in the halls between classes because I didn't even care since I wasn't even gay. Psh. Fast forward to a year later, we both have the same extracurricular activity. I'm an overachiever. And she comes out as bi and tells me, I wish you liked girls, and now was my next door neighbor. Let that sink in. If there is a God, she must love romantic comedies. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, actually, I don't. This was probably the best thing to happen in my sad, awkward teenage life. I had been practically handed the opportunity to be gay after questioning if I was gay. The end of a rainbow must have landed at my locker, and I was about to get my pot of gold. I had questioned if I was gay, and here was my chance. But believe me when I tell you, I still need to find this girl and apologize because we never became the protagonist in a gay teen drama series since I ran for my life. I ghosted her friends, I walked my dog on a new route just so I wouldn't pass her house. I was not ready. Let me say that again with more emphasis. I was not ready. The fear that was instilled in me led me to not be me. That doesn't mean my coming out never happened, obviously. But at 16, I was not ready, and that is okay. Not being prepared to come to terms with any part of your identity is fine. It's okay to be unsure. Just do what feels right. Whether that is identifying with a label or waiting till one finds you after running away from your confident bisexual neighbor. Your story is ever-changing and something that you are writing every single day. Years later, I came across another person I had a crush on. Big shock there. And this time, I wasn't as scared. Keyword, as. My fear of labels and coming out was soon replaced with excitement, that aha moment of, yes, I figured it out. Due to the fact that I was now ready to come out to myself, something just clicked in me, and I knew my happiness was worth fighting for. A vast contrast to years before. What I want to tell my younger self, that I'm going to tell you, is that when the time is right to come out, in any sense of the phrase, you will know. I think a big piece of the puzzle to get to that point is allowing yourself to go on the journey and celebrating little victories. Self-discovery isn't a race, and you will reach the finish line in your own way. Navigating finding who you are. As a human who has been seen as that straight girl, or that gay girl, or that straight guy, or that gay guy, I can say that my trans experience has given me incredible amounts of empathy. I have viewed the world through many different lenses. I've also gone through both quote-unquote female puberty and, thanks to hormone replacement therapy, quote-unquote male puberty. And I've also been viewed by others with so many different labels. Seriously, there was a time during my transition when I could get into 4 different Ubers in the same week, and each driver would see me as something different. And unfortunately, the service was also different each time. The most important thing is that I know who I am. That's the advice that I give to my peers when they tell me they're not being seen in their homes as who they are. But how do you even know who you are? It sounds strange, but humans are a unique species. We come into this world without any self-sufficiency at all. In the beginning, we spend months just crying all the time, and sometimes also in our teen years. Then we need help learning how to walk and talk and just be a human. In a few years, our spirits start to shine through, and we gravitate towards specific colors, sounds, and people. The internet played a vital role in helping me, and so many other kids, unearth the identities that we were raised not to see. Typically, the media that we consume as children doesn't show a wide range of representation. I was taught by my family, the media, and my peers that boys and girls get crushes on each other, exclusively. So in hindsight, I had a harder time identifying queer feelings of my own at a young age. The internet gave me the ability to pop the small bubble of my home, school, and town, and gain validation from posts by like-minded strangers. I guess that's why there's so much push towards having more representation in the media. If we don't see mature versions of ourselves being successful and happy, then how do we know we can be? It's cool that I've become that for other kids online. And I could send out so many thank you cards to Tyler Oakley, Hannah Hart, and so many other internet icons for being there during my years of self-discovery, which, by the way, never stops. Even when I think I understand the whole waking up on a rock floating in space thing, life, something new happens that makes me cringe at my past self. Through the years, I've had many unlikely teachers. Some queer, straight, survivors, mothers, children, and friends. It takes a village. And there's a lot you can learn from people who aren't afraid to be their authentic selves, even if their journey doesn't wholly mirror your own identity. Someone else's strength can give you the silent okay to take control of your...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?